Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. It's Mark. With me today on my podcast is Garrett Florent. Garrett is the co-owner of Rainguard. Rainguard is a specialty coatings manufacturer. They're out in California. What they make is really specialty clears, although not everything they make is clear, but really what they make is specialty clears. And I wanted to have Garrett on or somebody from Rainguard on because I do think that this is a really interesting niche for retailers. It's a spot where there's probably not a lot of retailers taking advantage of this market. And there is a market here. There's a tremendous amount of anti-graffiti coatings that are being sold in this country. And there's not a lot of manufacturers and distributors of those products. And in addition to that, Garrett and I get into a little conversation about who's buying these products. In addition to painters, masons are a tremendous source of revenue for many paint stores, particularly paint stores that have products like the products that Garrett and his company are making. A lot of these jobs, Mason will put up a wall, whether it's brick or concrete or what have you, and they'll get paid as part of the job to do some sort of sealer, even if a painting contractor may be brought in after to do some sort of anti-graffiti work or something. The mason still has responsibilities to leave that job finished. And so that really is a great opportunity, a little niche of business where a paint retailer can get in there and expand their offering and expand the number of customers prospectively that they can reach, as well as expand the offering to the customers that they already have. And so give Garrett a listen. He does a really good job, I think, of explaining what exactly the opportunity is. I know at Tremont Paint, we had a nice little niche with anti-graffiti coatings, and every year we would sell a couple hundred gallons of these and make a few dollars. They were always high margin. Every now and again, you'd get a big sale, a new train station or something. And so these are really opportunities to expand sales and margins with specialty products in general. So give Garrett a listen. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe. Brian, put my phone number up there. You could shoot me a text. If there's somebody you want to see on this show, let me know and I will try to get them on. In the meantime, here's Garrett. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me. It's Mark. With me on my episode today is Garrett Florent. He is the co-owner of specialty coatings manufacturer Rainguard. Garrett, how are you today?
Good. Yourself, Mark?
I'm doing well. Thanks. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate you making the time.
Of course. No, thanks for having me. This is a great privilege for us.
Well, thank you. And so before we get started, why don't we talk a little bit about your career and what brought you to Rainguard?
Yeah, well, my dad started Rainguard in 1997. Actually, that's where he purchased it from the original owner. It was actually another father and son. So he got it in 1997. I'm 33 years old. So I was eight years old at the time.
Your father was mine. He'd have put you right to work at 8 years old.
Yeah.
I was sweeping the floors in a paint store when I was 8 years old.
Exactly. So he picked me up from school. I do with my friends in the car, and I'd hear him talking about different products and talking to contractors and so on. So kind of grew up in that space. And when I was about 18, I went to work for the company while we were manufacturing out of the Georgia area back then. And just kind of grew up from there. I did start at the ground level. So I started making product in the back, sweeping up, like you were saying, in the factory. These days, I still like holding on to the sales rep aspect of what I do because I still have a lot of contacts after the last 12 years or so, being in the company. A little longer than that. Yeah. So I kind of wear a lot of different hats.
And so that's you. Tell us a little bit about Rainguard.
Yeah, Rainguard. So we specialize in making clear, penetrating sealers, film formers, a lot of protective coatings. The main objective is to supplement what paint stores don't make. We're not going to make primers and paints and exterior, interior paints. We're going to make those specialty coatings. We have gotten more into colors recently, but everything we do is low VOC, waterborne. We manufacture in Southern California, so we could sell it anywhere in the country. We're not limited by VOCs in any of our coatings.
And so what types of products are you making? Are these for wood? Are they for concrete? Are they for DIY or for professionals? What is the target that you're going for?
Yeah, pretty much everything. We got our feet in pretty much every market right now. We do have a big retail line sold through Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's, a lot of homeowner DIY products. And then we have our biggest segments, our commercial side, architectural specifications, things like that.
And that, I'm assuming, is sold through dealers, correct?
Yeah, so we distribute through all the major paint chains. That'd be like a Benjamin Moore retailer as an example.
Right. And so, what is the opportunity for independent retailers, most of whom obviously in our segment are Benjamin Moore retailers, but what is really the opportunity for them?
Well, I think it's supplement sales they're not used to. I think a lot of these stores, and it depends on the region, a lot of them look and say, well, we make paint. We sell interior, exterior paint colors. Where we get into are more the specialties, paver sealing, driveway sealing, garage floor epoxies now. So we get more into the niche or specialty items. I guess where they could be missing is they maybe are focusing too much on the big movers, the volume items versus there's a great market for this. I like to talk to them about masons. Masons are a big one. Paint stores are advertising to painters, pot and brush guys, commercial painters. Everyone skips the masons. There is a lot to be had there. These guys are building walls. They need to seal the wall, or they need a masonry detergent, or they're laying concrete down. They need to seal that as an after effect. And there's always a liquid product on those, whether it's a wetting aid to keep the concrete from cracking, or a curing aid, or just a simple sealer to protect the concrete or the masonry. So I think that's kind of the biggest opportunity that they're missing is working with these masons.
For us, I had two stores in the Bronx before I sold them and sort of got into this, making this content. For us, we found a cool little niche in clears, probably 30 years ago when I first got into the business with anti-graffiti coatings. There wasn't anybody who was really committed to stocking and understanding and making available anti-graffiti coatings. And so I learned a little bit about it and sacrificial and permanent coatings and took in a short line. And over the course of my career, it's not a huge category, but it's an extra few hundred gallons every year. And every few years you get 1,000-gallon order,
Of course.
something like that, right? A big apartment building, or in the Bronx, a big train station or something like that. And so that, I think, is an opportunity for independent retailers, whether it's anti-graffiti, which maybe is only suitable in some of the bigger urban markets, but other clears, you're right. I think that paint stores in general don't do a great job in this segment.
Well, especially if you're in like a more urban environment, you're going to see those graffiti coatings kick in. Another good one is like maintenance groups. So maintenance, other faculty maintenance, so for apartment complexes, need graffiti cleaners to take off, metal and different stuff around their complex. Same with school districts. That's a big one too. These school districts are constantly cleaning graffiti off. Some of the cleaners they encounter are so aggressive, they'll eat through everything. I know we make one. My biggest pitch with them is, look, there's these signs they're constantly cleaning with graffiti, but they have this clear plastic. And you'll go buy one of these signs and you see it just kind of eroding away and cracking and peeling. And you find out they used a cleaner that cleaned the graffiti, but then took off that clear finish on the sign. Right. And then the sun just cracks and peels it. Well, we have one that you would never do that. You can clean it all the time and it wouldn't damage the clear finish. Finding that right product. And what's nice about them is just reorder. They use it, they're day in, day out using it, and then they just call you to reorder.
What's interesting about a product line like this is we never stocked a lot of it. I would keep enough on hand to, maybe do a little bit of a sample, maybe be able to make a small sale if somebody wanted to do a little bit more than a sample. But the bigger sales, everybody waited 2 or 3 days and we got it directly from the manufacturer. If we had enough on hand that we could show how the cleaners work right there on the spot, if we could show how the anti-graffiti products worked, here's a gallon right there on the spot, sort of thing, that was enough to get the customers interested and make the sale, like I said, once the truck came in a week later.
Of course. Well, and I think that's a big point. I mean, I know from our perspective, we'll provide samples. Someone calls me and says, "Hey, I want to approach a school district. Here's some problems, or what do you think their problems could be?" We'll help guide them. We'll send them samples. Once they're up and running, now it's pretty simple. Keep a little bit in the store so when they walk in, they're ready. But yep. You're funding that with that initial sale, anyways.
That's a really good point that you made, because for me, solving problems was always probably the best way to grow my business. Because if I wanted to just sell somebody another can of paint in New York, we were all Benjamin Moore dealers. So if I wanted to sell somebody another gallon of Benjamin Moore paint, I had to do it a little cheaper, deliver it a little faster. I had to do something that could make me stand out in a field where everybody basically had the same thing. But if I could solve a problem for them with a unique product, or even with a unique understanding that I might have had, but particularly I was thinking about with unique products, you can really add to your sales that way because people will come back if you solve their problems for them.
Well, we have a saying for that called the nose of the camel getting it in the tent. And the reason they say that is because if in real life, apparently, I've never seen this personally, but if a camel puts his nose inside your tent, before you know it, that camel will be inside the tent fully. So what you're describing, you just solve that problem. Now, when they need to repaint or do a mural, you're more likely to be their go-to. It's a lost leader. Brings them. You've solved this problem they've had. They're going to go to you for the more simple things.
You know, my biggest customer over the entirety of my 30 years in the business, he was a painting contractor who did not know he was having horrible problems on his jobs. He was mostly in the city, small areas, and paint thinner was a very big problem for him. The smell was an enormous problem for him. We actually landed him he had no idea there was such a thing as odorless thinners. And we landed him simply enough just by selling the guy 100 gallons of odorless thinners. And 30 years later, he was still my biggest customer. And so solving problems brings in business, you know?
Of course.
And it makes people loyal to you.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I mean, I do that on a daily basis. You know, we go to shows, and I think the biggest is maintenance, because graffiti coatings are very niche. I mean, that's probably our more niche. There's not that many manufacturers out there.
That's right.
Thankfully, we have a flavor for anything you'd need, whether it's a penetrating graffiti coating or a film former. But usually that's kind of my lead in with the maintenance guys. And I will say our cleaner is very well balanced. It is very effective at removing graffiti, but then not damaging the underlying surface, like glass or metal, and etching it. Now you have a way bigger problem if you etch that surface.
And, you know, one of the nice things about the anti-graffiti products is that they do bring you into even another category, which is the washes and the removers and things for cleaning up the graffiti. So it's a great little niche of products that at least once you're in, it's sort of like the camel. Once you're in, it keeps bringing you back into the tent, you know?
Of course. And again, there's not that much competition. So there's not that many people who are going to go after your pie there, right? And try to take it.
And so a lot of the dealers that are listening, Garrett, deal with industrial products and high performance products. It's a big segment of the independent dealer channel. And I know that that's something that you guys have gotten into recently. Why don't you share a little bit about what you're doing now and where you see that segment going for you?
Of course. And a lot of the things we try to do when we're bringing a product to market, there's a lot of aliphatic urethanes. There's a lot of epoxies. It's why would you go to one company or another? And some of the common problems are lead times. A lot of these companies, especially for high performance, have long lead times. They're 6 to 8 weeks out. They have to factory tint them, and it's just a big delay.
You're talking about like Tanemic and some of the other specialty.
Try not to pick names, but that's who I hear all the time. Yes.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I remember them as being notoriously slow. So that's actually why I mentioned that name, which I'm free to do now since I'm retired. So
I didn't say it, you said it.
Exactly. So. That's my First Amendment right to bash Tanemic.
Yes, amen. Well, so that's how we typically bring ours to market. So a good example is we have a fluorinated polyurethane now. It's a high UV resistant, 15-year color fast warranty. These are high-end, application. 2 components, fluorinated aliphatic urethane for fancy terms.
So these are opaque coatings that go on a surface, not clears to go on a painted surface, correct?
Exactly. And a lot of these high performance start getting into colors. Where we've really refined that is, well, first off, lead time. I mean, we've always been very quick to ship. You order from us, even in large orders, it's going to ship in a day or 2. But in this case, it's actually tintable by the store. But it allows you that flexibility. So you can have a tint base, you can match it, and then now you can be, rocking and rolling, duplicating that on the project.
And duplicating it, right? That's the important part.
Exactly. Now you're just following the formula with that tint base for that job. So that's the biggest point I would say. Now, second, we have 0 VOC, water-based, no Prop 65 statements. Everything we make, we try to have that pitch to it. My dad, Claude, the owner, he's had many friends that you'd wash your hands in acetone, 20, 30 years ago to get the paint off. And these people are not around today. And I think that's a shame. We're here to work, to create a living so we can have a family, have a lifestyle, do what we want to do. And a lot of contractors, they've told me straight point blank, if it doesn't smell bad, it doesn't work well. I'll say for 10, 15 years ago, that was pretty much true. These days, the technology in water-based is unbelievable. You can have a no odor, 0 VOC waterborne that does the same as a solvent-based 1,000 grams per liter product.
Which, by the way, those are the products that I grew up with. I mean, regular alkyd wall paints were 1,000 grams per liter when I was your age.
Right.
We had no smoking policy in the store just because that store was always ready to blow,
Yeah, and you always see that one guy. Well, once a year, I always see someone at a gas station smoking, and you're like, "What are you doing?"
Exactly. And so, what's the opportunity for retailers there? Who's using those products? How do you get in front of a customer if you're a retailer who's interested in getting into some of the industrial products that you and I are talking about now? Who's the customer that they need to have?
Yeah, typically these are more commercial oriented. These are going to be specified products. They're going to show up in a high performance, Section 9 spec. I'd say the heavy lifting is on our part to get those specs. We have architectural reps. They're going after master specs. That way, when the stores, hey, here's Rainguard listed. That's right. We can buy that and sell it to our contractor. I think especially with the fluorinated polyurethanes, a lot of stores are used to just skipping that section because, Tnemec or Sherwin are just going to steal those sections because they have them.
You feel like you can compete in that section, segment.
For sure. Yeah, it's just going to say, we're going to be at least equal cost per square foot. We're actually technically trending lower right now, but then that lead time is massive. You picture a guy's doing a big job and then he needs a couple gallons to touch up. You're going to take 6 to 8 weeks. And he's fronting all the money of his labor. He's not getting his contract paid until he's done the checklist. He's got cash out the door. He's got to wait another month and a half, 2 months. That's untenable for many contractors.
And so let's talk about how you guys distribute Rainguard.
We have a master price list, has all the pricing. If a Benjamin Moore retailer reached out to us, one of the purchasing or the owner, whoever it may be, we would get them pricing. So set them all up. Then they can obviously go quote if they're working on a job. But, we don't have, because we're so architectural based, we're spec driven, we don't have a whole lot of shelf space. We do extremely well on the retail side, but on the commercial side, it's not something easy for someone to go grab and go or, get it locally for a smaller job. It's typically special ordered. That being said, we have a lot of incentives like free freight programs, discounts on all your orders if you have a stock program with us too. So we're really trying to drive that. That way it has a couple side effects. Those smaller jobs you'll be able to capture because they don't have to wait a couple days. They're not going to hem and haw. They just buy it and go. But then also we get more branding out there. So we're willing to give up margin to get that branding, at least for the pot and brush guys, because we don't get a lot of pot and brush.
And so all of those dealers are free to come to you directly. They don't have to buy through distribution.
Not at all. No, we don't do like a three-stepper like Lancaster or some of those others. Yeah.
That's a great way to end it. Garrett Florent, you're the co-owner of Rainguard. Thanks so much for joining me on my show today. Do you have any final words for dealers?
Of course. And thanks for having me, Mark. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, I would say reach out. That's the biggest thing. Let's get the conversation started. We can get you literature, samples. We can discuss what targets you're going to go after, and we can help give you those tools. We really want to partner with you. My direct email is just my first name, Garrett, 2 R's and 2 T's in Garrett, at rainguard.com, rainguard.com. And then my cell phone, if you prefer that, which I always say, if you can call, why email if you could just call someone. My number is 949-278-1559.
So Garrett Florent of Rainguard, thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate the time.
Of course. No, thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate your time as well.